Job Hunting
101.
Providing you with the tools you need in your job search. Job Hunting
101.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in today to Job Hunting 101, a series produced by Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. Our topic of conversation is going to be how to make your value known. My name is Sharon Bond, and I am the professional lead recruiter for Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance. With me today, I have two guests, Rhonda Hunter and Bert Sadtler. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Thank you, Sharon, for having us here today. I'm Rhonda Hunter. I'm a project manager at the Institute for Corporate and Continuing Education at Hillsborough Community College, and I'm also a corporate trainer for Hillsborough Community College, teaching a variety of professional development classes.
Super, thank you.
I am Bert Sadtler. I'm the president and founder of Boxwood Executive Search. We do senior level recruiting located in the Washington, D.C. area and expanding into the Tampa region.
Thank you, Bert. Well, as you know, the playing field has shifted quite a bit in recent times in terms of people finding a job. How to hold on to their job in particular has also been a huge challenge. What I would like to know from you today, please, Rhonda, but perhaps you would like to start with the answer, is how would somebody make their value known in the workplace when they're out there looking for a job?
Well, I think that what we're talking about today, how to make your value known, really it's about branding yourself. It's about identifying what is your professional identity. Who are you professionally? What is it that you can bring to the table? And having found your professional identity, once you do that, it's important that you share that with everybody. That you let your network, your coworkers, your supervisors know what you have to offer. And a lot of times we don't really share with others what we can bring to the table. So really finding or sharing your true value, branding yourself, that's what's key in today's workplace. As competitive as it is, we need to let other people know this is who I am professionally and this is what I can offer to you. And we need to have that message consistent, whether it's on your resume, whether it's on social media, whether it's talking to your coworkers. Share with everyone who you are, make everyone known, promote yourself, market yourself, and that's really what it's all about. Selling other people by marketing your own brand, which is you. You're your own brand, and it's up to you to market yourself to the best of your ability.
Those are excellent tips, Rhonda. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Bert, I was wondering what would your reaction be? How do you suggest somebody make their value known?
What I do as a consulting retained recruiter for my clients is follow a process in acquiring and finding talent. From the candidate's perspective, I'd say it's a process as well. The candidate needs to develop a process, and I think it starts with who is your audience. And it incorporates a comment you made in the beginning of this discussion. The paradigm is shifting. Things are changing. I haven't seen any jobs for dragon slayers in a long time. And so that's probably not a place where someone that might have had experience as a dragon slayer is going to find an opportunity for work in the future. What's going on in the marketplace today? What is the employer thinking? How are they facing challenges? How do you get their attention? How do you address the problem they're trying to solve? I think it starts there.
Our goal is to teach people how to present themselves during an interview process, how best to sell themselves during that time. What do you look for when you are interviewing somebody?
When I'm interviewing somebody, what I'm looking for is really a combination of a lot of factors. You're looking for someone who obviously has done research on your company. You're looking for someone that shows enthusiasm. You're looking for someone whose career goals coincide with your organization's goals. You're looking for someone that's a good mesh in your corporate culture, as well as knowing the job itself. There are a lot of things as an employer that you're looking for. Now, how is the average person going to set themselves apart from all the other resumes out there? Well, that's where we go back to the whole marketing, branding yourself. How are you going to set yourself apart? by recognizing what it is that that employer needs, reviewing their job description in detail, identifying on your resume, in your background, what have you done that can help that organization move forward and achieve the goals that are outlined on their website, in their corporate mission, in their corporate vision statement, in the job description. How can you help that organization to further their goals? Because when an employer is looking at your resume, as briefly as they're looking at your resume, all of 10, 15 seconds, when an employer is looking at your resume, they're asking not what I can do for you, but what is it that you can do for me? How can you help my company? And it's your job when you're marketing yourself on this resume, on that interview, it's your job to convince that employer, this is how I can help you. This is why you need me. Because I've done this, because I can do that, because I can help your organization go where you want it to go. And that's the responsibility of the job seeker to do that. And I do want to add to that, once you do get a job, first of all, congratulations. Once you do secure that employment, it's important to always promote yourself. Continue to market yourself. Continue to make your organization aware of everything that you're doing. And if they're using you in certain areas, and they might not be aware of what was your degree in, or what did you do 10 years ago that might benefit an upcoming project. So it's up to you to feel the pulse of your organization, to know where they're headed, and to share with them any experience that you've had that can help them. And so make them aware, not just your immediate supervisors, and not just your immediate coworkers, but also collaborate with other departments. Let other people in your organization, on other teams, know who you are, what you're about. And that's what branding is all about, knowing who you are and sharing that with the people that need to know.
Those are excellent tips, certainly. Bert, I know that you've got a couple of excellent points to make as well in terms of how does a person sell themselves during the course of an interview. What are the key points that you would be looking for?
Well, let's go back to what an interview might have been and where I think it's going more today. And there's been a classic pattern of typical interview questions, and once upon a time that might have worked really well. These days, most candidates have either heard all of the classic interview questions, read them, and many of them have practiced them. So largely, that simply is no different than pressing the button on a tape recorder and hitting the play. You're really not getting the answer back from a candidate that helps you get to know them better. To move that forward, it's a little harder, but it's much more rewarding to put it into a conversation, to put the candidate in a position where they're relaxed. This is a process that involves both sides. There is the employer who has a responsibility to know what they want and to be able to understand what they want, and then there is the employee or the candidate who has the responsibility to have done their research. And one of my favorite questions in an interview is, what did you do to prepare for this meeting? And it's meant to be open because I'm really interested in what they did attempt to do. But beyond that, wouldn't you really want to know what a candidate's going to be like when they start working for you? Isn't that what it's really about? Is it less about the day you hire them and more about the day they become an asset to your company? And so there has to be some efforts involved in the interview as part of an incorporated conversation where the candidate feels comfortable and you end up really talking to the person you're going to hire. From an ongoing basis, I think there is as well an importance to, once they've been hired, not just handing them the keys to the restroom and telling them what number their parking spot is, but really embracing and embedding time into an onboarding process which glues that new talent into your organization. And classically, that's been a 5 or 10 minute event in most cases, and it ought to be more like 6 months. They don't love your company the way you, the employer, do. Take the time, get to know them, help them with whatever weaknesses might have come up during the interview, and glue them in so they're with you for a long time. To emphasize the point again, things are changing. Candidates need to be thinking about what is current today and less about what might have worked a time ago.
Right. Those are excellent observations. You did touch a little bit on how trends are changing in the marketplace. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
As much as you want me to. So one example would be, let's think about where our parents worked, and if our parents were going to be in the telephone pole installation world, they probably retired in the telephone pole installation world 30 years later. And furthermore, where they started in many times is where they ended. That's not much like this community today. The information, the knowledge they had, largely resided between their ears. And in today's world, I don't need to know all the technical parts about telephone pole installing. I need to go to the internet, and pretty much whatever I want is there. So we're continuing to move in a different direction. Now it's more about, what can I do with that information? I have it. How do I express critical thinking? How do I express problem solving? How do I make that happen? And all of that means that a candidate who once entered one specific field does not need to feel they have to stay there. They can transition from that field to another by simply understanding where their opportunities are, by understanding what the problems are of that employer. Can they solve that problem, and is there a cultural fit in order to fit their technical skills?
Excellent. Do you have any thoughts about what Bert has just said?
I think Bert brings up an excellent point, which is as you are transitioning into a different industry, a different career, it's important to identify what skills did I acquire in the past that can be beneficial to where I'm looking to go in the future. And I'll give myself as an example. My background is similar to Bert in that I've done a lot of staffing and recruiting for many years. Now, when I transitioned into corporate training, it was teaching resume writing, teaching interviewing classes, which was exactly what I had been doing as a recruiter. As you know, that's hand in hand with recruiting all those years. So I used my skills in staffing in those areas to transfer them into a new industry in corporate training. And that's anyone who is looking for a new job, transitioning into a new career, really needs to do that. Look forward. Look into the future in terms of, where do I want my career to go? And where is this organization heading? And what have I done in the past that can complement the goals of the organization? So it's really about educating yourself on where this organization is going, what their priorities are, and matching that with what you have done in the past, and convincing them that it is a very complementary fit. And look forward, don't dwell in the past, but incorporate what you've experienced, what you've learned in the past to help promote the future that you want professionally.
Right, right. Excellent, excellent ideas. Thank you so much. Once the candidate is in the interview process and the employer's had a chance to ask various delving questions, probing questions, what sort of questions would you suggest, Bert, that the candidate then ask the client?
I think for every candidate, it's a different series of questions. There are so many potential questions a candidate can ask. It can be daunting and overwhelming. When I'm working with talent and we're in the final round and I see that we're close to making an offer, what I suggest that talent think about is, picture the scenario that we're making an offer to that candidate. The financial part is a non-issue. What are the things that individual doesn't know in order for them to say yes to our offer? What's unknown? They're the important questions. And again, for each individual, it's a different series of questions. But from a candidate's perspective, as you think about this opportunity and you move forward in the process and imagine becoming an employee, there are typically things that become critical in your mind. They're the important questions to that individual, and they need to be answered to that candidate's satisfaction. Just to add a fine point to that, I encourage candidates to ask questions. It is a critical part. This is a two-way street. It's not one way. You've got to understand what is the opportunity and why it's attractive to you. And the employer, in many cases, is evaluating the questions being asked as part of how they evaluate the candidate.
Absolutely. Very, very valid point there. Thank you, Bert. In your experience, Rhonda, what sort of questions would you expect to hear from a candidate during or towards the end of an interview?
Well, and I definitely will address that, but I think what we've been talking about is what to do during the interview. What are employers looking for? What kind of questions should you be asking? Which are very important questions. But what I really would like to kind of focus on a little bit is how do we get to that interview? What are some of the things that the job seekers out there, what can they do to actually beat out all of those other resumes, to actually get their foot in the door to do that interview? And I think that there are lots of ways in terms of how they are putting together their resumes, how they are networking, and these are things that can help them to get into the interview. And once you're in the interview and you have beat out those other candidates and have that opportunity to shine, absolutely those types of questions are important in terms of, you know, what kind of research have you done on the company, like I said, the job description, how does that match your background, what is it that they're looking from you, and where's that position heading in the future? What are the contributions that you can bring to the table, and what's the potential of the position? Really, there are a lot of valuable questions, and it all begins with you researching the company. But like I said, there's so many things that a job seeker can do initially to increase the chances of even getting that interview, because I know there are so many unemployed people out there that they feel like their resume is going into a black hole. They never hear anything. They never get the opportunity to get that interview. So if we can impart some valuable tips to them, and how can they set their resume apart? How can they network more effectively so that they can increase the chances of actually getting that interview? I think that would be really valuable.
What do you look for in a resume?
Well, I think in regards to the resume itself, the resume, and a lot of people don't see it as a marketing tool, but that's what it is. This is you marketing yourself on paper. Are you selling yourself effectively on paper, or are you merely listing your job experience? What have I done? Where did I work? These are the dates. Because if that's all you're doing, you're not making your resume as effective as possible. You need a tagline, first of all. You need to identify yourself professionally. Who are you? Who are you? Who are you professionally, and how does that match the position that I'm looking to fill? So, you know, initially, because someone looks at your resume so briefly, when they're looking at your resume, they need to know within seconds, okay, this is Sharon, and Sharon is an executive recruiter. This is who she is. Okay, so now I have a good idea of what to expect with the information that follows. If that information is not out there and clear at the very beginning, and you're making them work, again, you're already behind the 8 ball. Do not make the resume reader work. Don't hurt their eyes with font size that's too small. Don't bore them to death with a resume that's too long. I suggest 1 page, 2 pages maximum. Make it easy for them. Make it clean. Make it visually appealing. Use font style that's not hard on the eyes. Make it very clear who you are, what you have to offer, and like I said, make it visually appealing. And certainly check it for conciseness, for corrections. Make sure that there are no typos. Don't be too technology reliant on that, because again, they're looking for, when someone is looking at your resume, they're looking for ways to exclude you from consideration. They have a stack this big and they're looking to exclude you. So don't have anything on there that can exclude you from consideration. And additionally, because so many of the resume tracking systems are looking for keywords, whatever you see in that job description, whatever you see on that company website, try to incorporate some of those keywords on your resume so that it will be pulled up, and you have a better chance of getting contacted. So those are my tips with the resume. If Bert wants to add anything to it, or also if he would like to talk a little bit about, and I don't mean to take over you, I know you're the host, I'm sorry. But I'm very passionate about this because in my job, I work with a lot of unemployed people in my program. Yes. And I see how eager they are to get back to work and how competitive the job market is out there. Right. So anything that we can do to try to help them just to get that interview. Again, it's a tough economy, and anything that they can do to help would be great. That we can do to help them would be great.
You've definitely got some very good tips in there, Rhonda. Thank you for sharing that. I know that Bert takes a slightly different approach. And Bert, I know that you like to promote things like quantifiable results, where you're actually pushing hard numbers and achievements on the resume. Would you care to talk a little bit about that?
So in providing a comparison and a contrast to what Rhonda has described, I'd first say there's no right answer. And the resume that gets the interview, that's the right resume. If that's a picture of your pet, it's the right resume. It's not going to get you a job. A resume should not be created to get you a job. A resume should be created to be the ticket to a conversation. My feeling is that in this world that's changing rapidly, and what you once did isn't necessarily going to be what you do, a resume ought to be an empirical, factual depiction of your employment activity, period. Adjectives at the beginning only make the rest of the document subjective. My encouragement to folks, certainly at the senior level, is put together some version of a document that has one point of contact, phone number and email address, your name, first and last name, your middle initial, and your family's firstborn aren't necessary. They're going to call you Bert, and they're going to call you Bert Sadtler and move on. They're interested in a phone number, provide one phone number and your address. And then immediately below that, put in where you've worked and what you've done. And from my perspective, if that's multiple pages, fine. At the end, some education, maybe something you've belonged to that might be relevant. That document becomes a template that can go in 360 degrees. And should you as a professional find yourself attracted to an area that doesn't necessarily relate to where you've been, you can take the document and talk about it through a cover letter. Talk about it through the conversation. The cover letter that's gluing the resume to the potential employer should be brief, paragraph or less, and provide some level of relevancy. But this is the beginning of a conversation. There's no reason to tell your life story. Your potential employer doesn't want to know the life story. The potential employer wants to know how you are going to solve their problem. And that's what you're going to get paid for. So I view, again, if you hold the facts together, then the resume becomes empirically factual. And it should have some version of what you accomplished, how you address challenges, and the results.
Excellent. I think that what we've got here really are two very clear paths to getting an interview, depending on what level one is on. Certainly Bert is speaking to the executive level of recruiting, which is a slightly different playing field to most people who perhaps might be fresh out of college or have worked perhaps for the last 5 or 10 years. They're not at that executive level just yet. So I want to thank you both for clearly outlining those two paths. I think it's very important. And again, as you said, Bert, there really is no silver bullet. There is no correct way to do things. People need to look at both options and find their own way to getting that job, to getting that foot in the door.
But I think that what Bert said was very valuable, regardless of what level that you're at, because all employers, they want to see that you have brought results to that company.
Yes.
They want to look at your experience, and if you can quantify that, if you can show the tangible fruits of your labor, that's what they're looking for too.
Yes.
So that is important to include on your resume, and you certainly can incorporate that onto a resume at any level. In regard to the cover letter, it is important. Like Bert said, it definitely ties in the resume. A lot of employers, a lot of human resources managers, they really don't either won't look at the cover letter or very briefly will look at a cover letter. So really, it's important that you not rely on that to sell your resume, so that the resume itself, in my opinion, should be able to stand alone as well.
Right, that definitely is a good way to make your value known, certainly when you're out there looking for a job.
Can I add
Yes, please do.
an important aspect today? As we talk about this shifting paradigm, it used to be that you did nothing more than created a resume and put it somewhere. Maybe you hung it on a tree. Maybe you posted it somewhere. Not going to work today. This is an active, action-oriented marketplace. Passive approaches are for dragon slayers, not for people looking for work today. You have to go. You have to get up. You have to be in front of opportunities. You have to have multiple balls going. And just responding to a job board blindly is not what I would regard as having a solid opportunity. That's a hope. Maybe it makes you feel better, but it didn't necessarily get you any closer to having employment. The biggest challenge most employees face and most employers face is emotion. Brilliant folks lose an amount of ability to focus because of emotion. If it's your employment situation, there is a factor that is impacting you that's emotional. And employers who love their companies dearly also face a version of some emotional paralysis. What can be done about it is to be thoughtful and have someone around you who can provide some objectivity, and be aware that, again, the emotional piece does play a big role.
And
Certainly.
I completely agree that the best resource for finding a job would be your networking efforts. Building relationships, that is key. Connect with the people that you've worked with in the past. Connect with everybody that you know socially. Let them know what you're looking for. You have to be proactive in this job market. You have to pound the pavement. You have to make connections. You have to meet people face to face. If you're sitting behind a computer, it's like Bert said, and just simply submitting your resume, you are really, really not taking charge of your job search. So be proactive, get yourself out there, get yourself in front of people, talk to people, network, connect with people, because building a relationship is the biggest factor to helping you land that job.
I would like to share a little story with you very quickly about a gentleman who went in for an interview, and there was a glass of water on the table. It was half full. And the interviewer said, "Is this glass of water half full or is it half empty?" Well, the candidate picked up the glass of water and drank it and put it down and said, "I'm a problem solver." So perhaps that is another great way to make one's value known.
That's cute.
Yes. So,
Very creative.
do you have any final tips on sharing with somebody on how to make their value known when they're out there pounding the pavements, besides the networking and the resumes? Any final thoughts?
Well, my final thought to that would be to complement the comment that you just made a moment ago. And I think first, second, and third, the networking resource is the most powerful thing. The recruiting community is not necessarily here to find candidates a job. The recruiting community is here to find an employer a solution. For the job seeker, one of the most powerful words to be asking to the network is advice. Asking your network for a job usually will get you, "I don't know where there are any." Asking your network for advice, and followed by, "Who do you know who you can introduce me to who's well regarded and well connected," will expand your network. Even if it's somebody that does not appear to be directly in front of where you're trying to go, they know people. And that works well.
Thank you, Bert.
And the last thing I just want to add is you get what you give. So if you're looking for help from other people, be ready to provide that help and that assistance to other people in your network as well.
That's an excellent tip, yes, and I think certainly something that we had almost forgotten about. Networking definitely is a two-way street, and it's very much a give and take situation. I want to thank you both so much for coming today. Bert Sadtler, thank you very much for joining us all the way from the Baltimore, Maryland, or Ravens area as we now know it. And Rhonda, thank you so much again for coming out to join us. You've both been very valuable guests. We appreciate your time to discuss the topic for how to make your value known for the Job Hunting 101 series. Thank you.
The Tampa Bay Workforce Alliance and WorkNet Pinellas offer workforce solutions designed to improve your business. To learn more about our no-cost programs and services, visit workforcetampa.com or worknetpinellas.org.